Every single day, over 5 billion devices activate a symbol that's over 1,000 years old. It's on your phone right now, it's on your laptop, it's in your car, your headphones, your watch. You've tapped it thousands of times without ever thinking about it. But here's what nobody ever told you. That symbol? It's not a logo designed by some tech company. It's the initials of a dead Viking king, carved in ancient Norse runes from 958 AD. And the craziest part? The technology was never supposed to be called Bluetooth. The name was a placeholder, a temporary code name that stuck because someone forgot to trademark the real name. This is the story of how a Dutch engineer, a Swedish phone company, two guys drinking beer in Toronto, and a Viking king with a rotten tooth accidentally created the most used wireless technology in human history. Let's go back to the early 1990s. Picture this. You're at your desk. Your keyboard has a cable, your mouse has a cable, your printer has a cable, your phone is connected to the wall. If you want to send a file from your computer to someone else's, you literally walk over with a floppy disk. Everything is connected by wires, and every single wire uses a different connector, a different protocol, a different standard. It's a mess. Now the mobile phone is starting to take off. Ericsson, the Swedish telecom giant, is one of the biggest players in the game. They're selling millions of phones, but they have a problem that no one has solved yet. How do you connect a phone to an accessory, like a headset, without a wire? And not just voice, data too, contacts, files, everything, without draining the battery in 5 minutes. Every company is trying to figure this out independently. Nokia has its own thing. Intel has its own thing. None of them talk to each other. None of them are compatible. It's like every country speaking a different language with no translator. And that's where our story really begins. Because in 1991, a quiet Dutch engineer walks into Ericsson's offices, and he has no idea that he's about to build something that will end up in every device on the planet. Jaap Haartsen was born in The Hague, Netherlands in 1963. As a kid, he was the type who couldn't leave things alone. Broken radios, old TVs. He'd open them up with a screwdriver just to see how they worked inside. He'd build little circuits with transistors and resistors, not because anyone told him to, but because he genuinely wanted to understand how electronic components talked to each other. He went on to study electrical engineering at Delft University of Technology, one of the best in Europe. Got his master's degree with honors in 1986. Then his PhD, also with honors, in 1990. The guy was clearly brilliant, but here's the thing. He wasn't some Silicon Valley entrepreneur chasing glory. He was an engineer. He liked solving problems. In 1991, he joined Ericsson in the United States, working in their research department on advanced cellular systems. 2 years later, in 1993, he moved to Ericsson's mobile phone division in Lund, Sweden. And that's where everything changed. His boss, Ericsson's CTO Niels Rydbeck, gave him a challenge, a simple one on paper. Find a way to create short-range wireless connections between a mobile phone and nearby devices. Voice and data, low power, cheap enough to put in every phone. Simple on paper, impossible in practice. The problem was physics. The 2.4 gigahertz frequency band, the one that made sense for short-range communication, was already packed with interference. Microwaves, Wi-Fi signals, garage door openers, baby monitors, everything was screaming on that frequency. Building a reliable connection in that chaos was like trying to have a conversation in the middle of a rock concert. But Haartsen had an idea. What if, instead of staying on one frequency, the signal jumped between dozens of frequencies, 1,600 times per second? If one channel is blocked, you're already on the next one before it matters. He called it frequency hopping. For 3 years, from 1994 to 1997, Haartsen sat at his desk in Lund, running simulation after simulation, building prototypes, testing, failing, adjusting, no big announcements, no hype, just an engineer doing what engineers do. And then, in 1997, it worked. But here's the wild part. Ericsson didn't wait for a finished product. They hadn't even sent a single bit over the actual network yet, and the company was already calling other manufacturers to join them. Because Ericsson realized something crucial. This technology would only work if everyone used the same standard. A wireless connection that only works between Ericsson devices is useless. They needed Nokia, Intel, IBM, Toshiba, everyone are on board. And to get them on board, they needed a name. This is where the story takes the most unexpected turn. It's late 1997. Jim Kardach, an engineer at Intel, and Sven Mattisson, an engineer at Ericsson, are in Toronto, Canada. They've just given a presentation about their wireless technologies to a room full of industry people, and it went terribly. Nobody cared. So they did what any two frustrated engineers would do. They went to a bar. Over beers, the conversation drifted from technology to history. Kardach was a history nerd, and Mattisson, being Swedish, knew his Viking lore. Mattisson told Kardach about a king named Harald Gormsson, who ruled Denmark from 958 to 986 AD. Harald had done something remarkable for his time. He united the warring tribes of Denmark into a single kingdom, conquered Norway, and converted the Danes to Christianity. His nickname? Blutand, Bluetooth, probably because he had a dead tooth that had turned dark blue. Kardach's brain lit up. A king who united Scandinavia, just like they were trying to unite the PC and cellular industries with a single wireless standard. It was perfect. When Kardach got back to Intel, he suggested Bluetooth as a temporary code name for the project. Just something to call it while the marketing people figured out the real name. In May 1998, 5 companies, Ericsson, Intel, Nokia, IBM, and Toshiba, officially formed the Bluetooth Special Interest Group, and the race to find a permanent name began. The 2 finalists were Radio Wire, proposed by Intel, and PAN, which stood for Personal Area Networking, proposed by IBM. PAN won the internal vote, 4-1. But then right before launch, someone did a trademark search on PAN. Thousands of results. Impossible to trademark. Okay, let's go with Radio Wire then. But, and this is the part that's almost too ridiculous to be true, nobody had done a trademark search on Radio Wire either. There was no time. The launch date was set. The only name that was ready to go, the only one that was already in all the documents, all the presentations, all the press materials, was the temporary code name. Bluetooth. The placeholder name became permanent. A Viking king from 958 AD became the face of a technology that would connect billions of devices, and nobody planned it. Oh, and the logo? Kardach took the Nordic runes for Harald's initials, H and B. In the old Futhark alphabet, H is written as H and B as B. He merged them into a single symbol. That symbol is now on every phone, laptop, and wireless device on Earth. Viking runes from 1,000 years ago, hiding in plain sight. With the name settled accidentally, the technology itself still had to prove it could work in the real world. The first Bluetooth-enabled phone was supposed to be the Ericsson T36 in 2000. But it was so buggy and unreliable that it never actually reached stores. It wasn't until 2001 that a revised version, the Ericsson T39, finally hit the market. Bluetooth's first impression was honestly not great. Version 1.0 had real issues: connection drops, pairing failures, security vulnerabilities. Address broadcasting was mandatory, which meant anyone nearby could see your device. People joked that Bluetooth stood for Blue Screen of Death, Tooth Edition. And the competition was fierce. Infrared was already established. Wi-Fi was getting faster. Some engineers inside Intel and Nokia openly questioned whether Bluetooth was even necessary. Why not just use Wi-Fi for everything? But Bluetooth had one advantage that nothing else could match: power consumption. Haartsen's frequency hopping design was incredibly energy efficient. A Bluetooth chip could run for days on a tiny battery, while Wi-Fi would drain it in hours. For mobile devices, phones, headsets, watches, that was everything. Version after version, Bluetooth improved. Version 2.0 in 2004 tripled the data transfer speed. Version 4.0 in 2010 introduced Bluetooth Low Energy, which was a game changer. BLE used so little power that a device could run for years on a single coin cell battery. This opened the door to an entirely new world. Fitness trackers, smartwatches, smart home sensors, medical devices, AirTags. And then came the moment that made Bluetooth truly unavoidable. In 2016, Apple removed the headphone jack from the iPhone 7. Overnight, hundreds of millions of people needed wireless audio. And what was the standard? Bluetooth. The Bluetooth SIG grew from 5 founding companies to over 41,000 member companies. By 2025, global Bluetooth device shipments hit 5.4 billion units per year. Not total, per year. That's more devices shipped annually than there are people on Earth. And Jaap Haartsen, the guy who made it all possible, he's worth roughly $8 to $10 million. That sounds like a lot until you realize that Bluetooth generates hundreds of billions in economic value every year. He invented it while working at Ericsson, so the patents belong to the company, not to him. He got a salary, some royalties, and a spot in the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2015. Today, he's the CTO of a small company in the Netherlands called Doppel, making hearing protection products. Not exactly the billionaire lifestyle you'd expect from the man who connected the modern world. But here's what makes this story truly extraordinary. It's not just about wireless technology. It's about how the most random chain of events created something permanent. Think about it. If Ericsson's CTO hadn't casually assigned Haartsen to a side project in 1994, there's no Bluetooth. If Kardach and Madison hadn't bombed their presentation in Toronto and gone for beers, there's no name. If someone at IBM had remembered to do a trademark search on PAN, we'd all be connecting our PAN headsets right now. And if an 11th century monk hadn't written down the nickname of a Danish king with a bad tooth, none of this would have a name at all. Harald Bluetooth united Denmark over 1,000 years ago. He brought warring tribes together under one kingdom. And then, a millennium later, 2 engineers in a bar decided that his name was the perfect metaphor for a technology that would unite every device on the planet. The Jelling Stone, which Harald erected in Denmark around 965 AD, has an inscription that reads, "Harald, who won for himself all of Denmark and Norway, and made the Danes Christian." Today you could add one more line, "and whose initials are on 5 billion devices that he could never have imagined." Every time you pair your headphones, every time you connect your watch, every time that little symbol lights up on your phone, you're activating a Viking king's initials, a link to 958 AD that's been hiding in your pocket this entire time. What I find most interesting about this story isn't the technology. It's the fact that Jaap Haartsen's name is essentially unknown. Over 5 billion devices carry his invention. You probably use Bluetooth today without even thinking about it. But if I asked you who invented it, you wouldn't have had the answer 10 minutes ago. We remember Steve Jobs. We remember Bill Gates. We remember Elon Musk. But the engineer who quietly sat in a lab in Sweden for 3 years, solving one of the hardest problems in wireless communication, his name doesn't even have a Wikipedia page that most people have visited. Maybe that's the difference between inventors and entrepreneurs. One builds the thing, the other builds the story around the thing. Haartsen built the thing. Harald Bluetooth A king dead for 1,000 years accidentally became the story. And that might be the most Viking thing of all. Conquering the modern world from beyond the grave. If you found this interesting, subscribe to Kernel for more stories like this. I'll see you in the next one.